one of the biggest mistakes many soft women make is apologizing for things that never required an apology in the first place. It often starts early in life. They learn to be agreeable, considerate, and careful not to inconvenience others. Over time, this habit becomes automatic. They apologize when they ask a question, they apologize when they share an opinion, they apologize when they need help, they apologize when they express emotions. Eventually, they begin apologizing not for what they do, but for who they are. At first glance, constant apologizing may seem like kindness or humility, but beneath the surface, it often communicates something much deeper. It sends the message that your needs matter less than everyone else's. It suggests that your voice requires permission before it can be heard. And when this pattern repeats over and over, people unconsciously begin to see you the same way you see yourself. Think about it for a moment. Have you ever said sorry for bothering you when you simply needed information? Have you ever said sorry if this sounds stupid before sharing an idea? Have you ever apologized for taking up space, speaking honestly, or asking for what you deserved? These small statements may seem harmless, but they gradually shape how others perceive your confidence and self-worth. The truth is that confidence is not about believing you are better than anyone else. Confidence is believing that you are just as worthy as everyone else. When you constantly apologize for existing, you unknowingly tell yourself and others that your needs are somehow less important. Respect becomes difficult to achieve because respect often follows self-respect. Many soft women fear that if they stop apologizing, they will appear rude, selfish, or arrogant. But there is a huge difference between kindness and unnecessary self-dismissal. A respectful person can be considerate without constantly putting themselves down. They can acknowledge mistakes when mistakes are made, but they do not carry responsibility for things that are not their fault. Imagine two people entering a meeting. One begins every sentence with uncertainty. Sorry, but I was thinking, sorry, this may not be important. The other simply says, I have an idea I'd like to share. Both individuals may have the same intelligence and insight, but one communicates belief in their value while the other questions it before anyone else has the chance to. People often take cues from how we treat ourselves. If you consistently act as though your presence is an inconvenience, others may begin to treat it that way. If you consistently communicate that your thoughts deserve attention, others are more likely to listen. This is not because they are better people or worse people. It is because human beings naturally respond to the standards we set for ourselves. This does not mean you should never apologize. Genuine apologies are important. When you hurt someone, make a mistake, or act unfairly, a sincere apology demonstrates maturity and accountability. But an apology loses its meaning when it becomes your default response to everyday life. The goal is not to eliminate apologies. The goal is to use them honestly and intentionally. Instead of apologizing for taking up space, express gratitude. Instead of saying, sorry for the delay, try saying thank you for your patience. Instead of saying sorry to bother you, try saying thank you for your time. These simple shifts change the energy of the conversation. They allow you to remain polite without diminishing yourself. The deeper issue is not language. The deeper issue is belief. Somewhere along the way, many women were taught that being accepted required being smaller, quieter, and less demanding. But respect is not earned by disappearing. Respect is earned when kindness is combined with self-worth. You do not have to choose between being soft and being strong. You can be both. The moment you stop apologizing for your existence, something powerful begins to happen. You speak with greater confidence. You make decisions with greater clarity. You stop waiting for permission to express your needs. Most importantly, you begin treating yourself as someone whose voice matters. And when you truly believe your voice matters, the world starts listening differently. Not because you became louder, but because you finally stopped questioning your right to be heard. One of the most important lessons a soft woman can learn is that saying no is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of self-respect. Yet for many women, the word no feels uncomfortable, even frightening. They worry about disappointing people. They fear being seen as rude, difficult, or uncaring. So instead of expressing what they truly want, they say yes. They agree to favors they do not have time for. They accept responsibilities they do not want. They tolerate situations that drain their energy. And little by little, they begin sacrificing their own well-being for the comfort of others. At first, saying yes seems harmless. It feels like kindness. It feels like generosity. It feels like being a good friend, a good partner, a good daughter, or a good colleague. But when every yes comes at the expense of your own needs, kindness turns into self-neglect. What began as a desire to help others becomes a habit of abandoning yourself. The problem is not that soft women care too much. The problem is that they often believe caring for others requires ignoring themselves. They assume that love means endless availability. They assume that being supportive means never having limits. They assume that being a good person means saying yes whenever someone asks. But healthy relationships are not built on endless sacrifice. They are built on mutual respect. Every time you say yes to something you do not want, you are saying no to something else. You may be saying no to your rest. You may be saying no to your goals. You may be saying no to your peace of mind. You may be saying no to the time and energy you need for yourself. Most people focus on the immediate benefit of pleasing someone else, but they rarely consider the hidden cost they are paying. Have you ever agreed to attend an event you did not want to attend? Have you ever taken on extra work when you were already exhausted? Have you ever listened to someone's problems for hours while ignoring your own emotional needs? If so, you know the feeling that follows. Resentment begins to grow. Frustration quietly builds beneath the surface. You start feeling unappreciated, even though no one forced you to say yes. The truth is that resentment often develops when we repeatedly betray our own boundaries. One reason people struggle with saying no is because they confuse rejection with boundaries. They think refusing a request means rejecting a person. But those are two very different things. You can care deeply about someone and still say no. You can love someone and still protect your time. You can be compassionate and still have limits. In fact, the healthiest relationships are often built on clear boundaries because everyone understands where they stand. People who respect you will not lose respect because you set boundaries. If anything, they will respect you more. They will understand that your time has value. They will recognize that your commitments matter. They will learn that your kindness is a choice, not an obligation. People who become angry whenever you say no are often the very people who benefited most from your inability to set limits. Learning to say no does not mean becoming cold or unkind. It simply means becoming honest. Instead of agreeing out of guilt, you respond with clarity. Instead of overcommitting and under-delivering, you make promises you can actually keep. Instead of pretending to have unlimited energy, you acknowledge that your resources are finite. The reality is that every successful, confident, and respected person has boundaries. They understand that their time, attention, and energy are valuable. They know they cannot be everything to everyone. They know that protecting their well-being allows them to show up more fully in the areas that truly matter. A soft woman does not lose her kindness when she learns to say no. She strengthens it. Her generosity becomes more genuine because it comes from choice rather than pressure. Her relationships become healthier because they are built on honesty rather than obligation. Her confidence grows because she stops seeking approval through constant accommodation. The most powerful thing about a respectful no is that it teaches others how to treat you. It communicates that your needs matter too. It reminds people that your time is valuable. And most importantly, it reminds you that your life belongs to you, because every time you say yes to something that violates your boundaries, you give away a piece of your freedom. But every time you say no with confidence and grace, you reclaim a piece of your self-respect. And real respect always begins there. One of the quietest traps a soft woman can fall into is seeking validation from everyone around her. It often starts with a simple desire that every human being shares, the desire to be accepted, appreciated, and valued. There is nothing wrong with wanting encouragement. There is nothing wrong with enjoying praise. The problem begins when your sense of worth becomes dependent on other people's opinions. Many women spend years measuring themselves through the eyes of others. They feel confident when they receive compliments and insecure when they receive criticism. They feel worthy when people approve of their choices and doubtful when people disagree. Their emotional state rises and falls based on how others respond to them. Over time, they hand over control of their self-esteem without even realizing it. The danger of seeking validation is that it places your happiness in someone else's hands. When your confidence depends on external approval, you are no longer living according to your own values. You are living according to the expectations of others. You begin making decisions based on what will earn praise rather than what feels right. You begin hiding parts of yourself that might invite criticism. You begin changing who you are in order to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. Think about how exhausting that can become. Imagine waking up every day trying to manage everyone else's opinion of you. One person thinks you are too ambitious. Another thinks you are not ambitious enough. One person thinks you are too emotional. Another thinks you are too distant. One person admires your confidence. Another calls it arrogance. No matter what you do, someone will have an opinion. If your self-worth depends on pleasing everyone, you will spend your life chasing something impossible. The truth is that no amount of external validation can permanently fill an internal void. Compliments may make you feel good for a moment. Recognition may boost your confidence temporarily. Approval may provide a short-lived sense of security. But if you do not genuinely value yourself, those feelings quickly fade. You will need more praise, more reassurance, and more confirmation just to maintain the same level of confidence. This is why some people achieve incredible success and still feel insecure. They receive admiration from thousands, yet continue questioning their worth. The issue is not a lack of validation. The issue is that they never learn to validate themselves. Self-validation begins with understanding that your worth is not something other people get to decide. It is not determined by your appearance, your achievements, your relationship status, or the number of people who approve of you. Your value exists before anyone compliments you and remains even when someone criticizes you. This does not mean you should ignore feedback. Growth often requires listening to constructive criticism. Wise people remain open to learning and improving. However, there is a difference between considering feedback and depending on it. Feedback can guide your development, but it should never define your identity. One of the strongest signs of self-respect is the ability to trust your own judgment. It is the ability to make decisions that align with your values, even when they are not popular. It is the courage to pursue goals that others may not understand. It is the confidence to stand alone when necessary, rather than compromising who you are just to gain approval. Many soft women fear that if they stop seeking validation, they will become selfish or disconnected from others. In reality, the opposite often happens. When you stop needing constant approval, your relationships become healthier. You stop performing for acceptance. You stop saying what people want to hear. You stop pretending to be someone you are not. Instead, you show up authentically. And authenticity creates deeper connections than people-pleasing ever could. The most respected women are not those who are loved by everyone. They are the women who know who they are, regardless of who approves. They understand that confidence is not built on applause. It is built on self-trust. They know that not everyone will agree with them, and they are at peace with that reality. At some point, every woman must decide whose voice matters most. The voice of the crowd will always change. Public opinion is unpredictable. Trends come and go, expectations shift, but your inner voice remains. The question is whether you trust it enough to listen. The moment you stop looking to others to tell you who you are, you begin discovering who you truly are. You stop chasing approval and start pursuing purpose. You stop shaping your life around other people's expectations and start building it around your own values. And that is where genuine confidence is born. Because real self-worth is not found in being accepted by everyone. It is found in accepting yourself even when everyone else does not. One of the most damaging habits a soft woman can develop is ignoring disrespect in the name of keeping peace. Many women are taught that being kind means staying quiet, being patient means tolerating poor behavior, and being mature means avoiding conflict at all costs. As a result, they often remain silent when someone crosses a boundary, speaks to them disrespectfully, dismisses their feelings, or repeatedly takes advantage of their kindness. At first, staying silent can feel like the easier choice. It avoids arguments, it prevents uncomfortable conversations, it keeps relationships from becoming tense. But what many people fail to realize is that avoiding conflict does not always create peace. Sometimes it simply creates permission. When disrespect goes unchallenged, people often assume their behavior is acceptable. What you tolerate today becomes the standard you are expected to tolerate tomorrow. Many soft women tell themselves that speaking up will make them seem dramatic or difficult. They worry about hurting someone's feelings. They fear being misunderstood. So instead of addressing the problem, they convince themselves it is not a big deal. They brush off hurtful comments. They excuse repeated disappointments. They overlook behaviors that would never be acceptable if directed towards someone they loved. Over time, this pattern creates a dangerous cycle. The disrespect continues because it is never addressed. The frustration grows because the hurt is never expressed. Resentment begins to build beneath the surface. Eventually, the woman who worked so hard to avoid conflict finds herself emotionally exhausted by the very situation she tried to keep peaceful. The truth is that peace and silence are not the same thing. Real peace comes from honesty, clarity, and mutual respect. Silence, on the other hand, can sometimes hide unresolved pain. A relationship may appear calm on the outside while quietly deteriorating on the inside. Problems do not disappear simply because they are ignored. They often grow stronger in the absence of accountability. Consider how people learn to treat one another. Human beings naturally observe what behaviors are accepted and what behaviors are not. If someone repeatedly interrupts you and you never address it, they may assume it does not bother you. If someone constantly cancels plans without consideration and you always accept it without discussion, they may believe there are no consequences. If someone speaks to you with disrespect and you remain silent every time, they may come to view that behavior as normal. This does not mean every disagreement requires a confrontation. Not every comment deserves a response. Not every mistake needs a lengthy discussion. The goal is not to become argumentative. The goal is to become clear. Respect grows when people understand your standards. It grows when your actions and words communicate that kindness does not mean weakness. Many women mistakenly believe that standing up for themselves requires becoming aggressive. In reality, some of the strongest people are also the calmest. They do not raise their voices to be heard. They do not attack others to prove a point. They simply communicate their boundaries with confidence and consistency. They say what needs to be said without cruelty. They address problems without creating unnecessary drama. There is tremendous power in calm honesty. A simple statement such as, "I don't appreciate being spoken to that way," can change the entire dynamic of a relationship. A respectful but firm response communicates self-respect. It sends a message that your feelings matter and that certain behaviors are not acceptable. The fear of conflict often comes from a deeper fear, the fear of rejection. Some women worry that if they speak up, people will leave. They fear losing relationships, friendships, or approval. But a relationship that can only survive when you remain silent is not built on genuine respect. Healthy relationships can withstand honest conversations. In fact, they often become stronger because of them. The reality is that every meaningful relationship requires boundaries. Without them, one person ends up giving while the other keeps taking. Without them, resentment replaces trust. Without them, kindness becomes a resource that others consume rather than appreciate. A soft woman does not need to become hard-hearted to earn respect. She does not need to become confrontational or cold. She simply needs to understand that protecting her dignity is part of protecting her peace. Speaking up when necessary is not an act of aggression. It is an act of self-respect. The moment you stop excusing repeated disrespect, everything begins to change. You stop teaching people that your boundaries are optional. You stop sacrificing your well-being to avoid uncomfortable conversations. You stop confusing silence with strength, because true strength is not found in how much disrespect you can endure. True strength is found in knowing when to say, calmly and confidently, "This is not acceptable." And when you learn to do that, you discover something powerful. The peace you were trying so hard to preserve was never found in staying silent. It was found in finally respecting yourself enough to speak. One of the most common ways soft women lose respect, both from others and from themselves, is by shrinking who they are to make other people comfortable. They learn to downplay their achievements, hide their ambitions, soften their opinions, and dim their personalities because they fear being judged, criticized, or rejected. Instead of showing the world their full potential, they present a smaller version of themselves, hoping it will be easier for others to accept. This habit often develops gradually. A woman shares an accomplishment and is told she is showing off. She expresses a strong opinion and is labeled difficult. She pursues a big goal and is told she is aiming too high. Over time, she begins to associate visibility with criticism. She learns that being less noticeable feels safer than standing out, so she starts editing herself. She speaks a little less. She dreams a little smaller. She celebrates her victories a little more quietly. She avoids taking credit for her work. She hesitates before sharing her ideas. She becomes so focused on making sure nobody feels uncomfortable around her that she forgets she has a right to take up space too. The problem is that shrinking yourself never creates the respect you are hoping for. It may help you avoid attention for a while, but it also prevents people from seeing your true value. When you constantly minimize your strengths, others rarely recognize them. When you hide your talents, people cannot appreciate them. When you refuse to acknowledge your achievements, you teach others to overlook them as well. Many soft women believe that humility requires self-erasure. They think confidence and kindness cannot exist together. But true humility is not pretending you have no strengths. True humility is recognizing your strengths without believing they make you superior to anyone else. There is a difference between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance says, "I am better than everyone else." Confidence says, "I know my value and I don't need to prove it." The world often sends mixed messages to women. Be confident, but not too confident. Be ambitious, but not too ambitious. Speak up, but not too much. Stand out, but not enough to make anyone uncomfortable. Trying to satisfy these conflicting expectations is exhausting, because no matter what you do, someone will always have an opinion. If you spend your life trying to avoid criticism, you will eventually avoid growth. Every successful person has faced judgment. Every respected leader has been misunderstood. Every influential voice has been criticized by someone. The goal is not to eliminate criticism. The goal is to stop allowing the fear of criticism to control your life. Think about how many opportunities are lost when people hide their potential. Ideas never get shared. Businesses never get started. Dreams never get pursued. Talents never get developed. Not because the person lacked ability, but because they spent years convincing themselves to stay small. The truth is that the people who genuinely care about you do not benefit from a diminished version of you. They benefit from seeing you thrive. They benefit from watching you grow into your full potential. Healthy relationships are not threatened by your success. Healthy relationships celebrate it. There is also a deeper cost to shrinking yourself. Every time you silence your voice, ignore your ambitions, or minimize your abilities, you send yourself a message. You tell yourself that your gifts are not important. You tell yourself that your dreams are less valuable than other people's comfort. Eventually, that message becomes part of your identity. But imagine what happens when you stop doing that. Imagine speaking without immediately second-guessing yourself. Imagine accepting compliments without deflecting them. Imagine pursuing goals without apologizing for them. Imagine walking into a room without feeling the need to make yourself smaller. That kind of confidence changes everything. It affects how you carry yourself, how you communicate, and how others respond to you. People naturally respect those who respect themselves. They notice when someone is comfortable with who they are. They recognize authenticity. They are drawn to individuals who no longer seek permission to exist. This does not mean becoming loud, attention-seeking, or self-centered. It means refusing to hide the qualities that make you unique. It means allowing your intelligence to be seen. It means letting your talents be used. It means embracing your ambitions without guilt. It means understanding that your success does not take anything away from anyone else. A soft woman does not become more respected by becoming smaller. She becomes more respected by becoming more fully herself. Her kindness remains, but her confidence grows. Her compassion remains, but her courage becomes visible. She stops measuring her worth by how comfortable she can make everyone else feel and starts measuring it by how honestly she is living. Because the world does not need a watered-down version of who you are. It does not need your silence, your hesitation, or your self-doubt. It needs your ideas, your gifts, your voice, and your presence. And the moment you stop shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were never designed for your full potential, you finally give yourself permission to become the person you were always meant to be. One of the most painful mistakes a soft woman can make is giving endless chances to people who repeatedly show that they do not value her. Because she is compassionate, understanding, and hopeful, she often believes that people can change if given enough time, patience, and support. She sees potential where others see patterns. She focuses on intentions instead of actions. She keeps believing that the next apology will be different, the next promise will be kept, and the next disappointment will be the last one. At first, this seems like a beautiful quality. After all, forgiveness is a strength. The ability to see the good in people is rare. The willingness to offer grace instead of judgment can be one of the most admirable traits a person possesses. But when forgiveness has no limits and grace has no boundaries, kindness can become self-destruction. Many soft women confuse being understanding with being endlessly available. They convince themselves that everyone deserves another chance, then another, then another. Before long, they find themselves trapped in a cycle of disappointment. The same behavior keeps happening, the same excuses keep being made, the same promises keep being broken, yet they continue hoping that things will somehow change. The problem is that hope without evidence can become a dangerous thing. While optimism is valuable, it should never replace reality. A person's words may sound sincere, but it is their actions that reveal their true intentions. Anyone can apologize, anyone can make promises, anyone can say they care. What truly matters is whether their behavior reflects those words consistently over time. One of the hardest truths to accept is that some people do not learn through kindness alone. Some people learn through consequences. If every act of disrespect is forgiven immediately, if every broken promise is overlooked, and if every boundary violation is met with another opportunity, there is little motivation for change. In fact, some people begin to assume that no matter what they do, they will always be welcomed back without accountability. This is why boundaries are so important. Boundaries are not punishments. They are not acts of revenge. They are standards that protect your well-being. They communicate what is acceptable and what is not. They teach people how to treat you. Without boundaries, kindness often becomes something others take for granted rather than something they appreciate. Many women struggle with this because they fear being perceived as harsh. They worry that walking away means giving up on someone. They fear that creating distance means they are being unforgiving. But there is a significant difference between forgiveness and access. You can forgive someone without allowing them to continue hurting you. You can wish someone well without inviting them back into your life. You can release bitterness without reopening the door. The reality is that trust is not rebuilt through words. Trust is rebuilt through consistent action. If someone genuinely values your presence, their behavior will eventually reflect that value. They will make an effort. They will respect your boundaries. They will take responsibility for their actions. They will demonstrate change instead of merely discussing it. A soft woman often gives endless chances because she focuses on the person she believes someone could become. But relationships are built on who people are today, not who they might become someday. Potential is not a substitute for character. Promises are not a substitute for effort. Good intentions are not a substitute for accountability. When you repeatedly allow someone to cross the same line, something subtle begins to happen. Your self-respect starts to erode. You begin questioning your own standards. You start accepting treatment that would once have been unacceptable. Over time, your willingness to tolerate poor behavior becomes normalized. What once hurt deeply becomes something you expect. This is why learning when to walk away is just as important as learning how to forgive. Walking away is not always a sign of anger. Sometimes it is a sign of wisdom. Sometimes it is an acknowledgement that your energy, time, and emotional well-being deserve protection. Sometimes it is the recognition that you cannot heal someone who refuses to take responsibility for their actions. The strongest women are not the ones who endure endless disrespect. They are the ones who know when enough is enough. They understand that compassion does not require self-sacrifice. They understand that love should not come at the cost of dignity. They understand that protecting their peace is not selfish. It is necessary. A soft heart is one of life's greatest gifts. It allows you to connect deeply, forgive generously, and care sincerely. But a soft heart should never require a weak backbone. Kindness without standards invites exploitation. Compassion without boundaries invites disappointment. Love without self-respect invites pain. The moment you stop giving endless chances to people who continually prove they do not value you, your life begins to change. You stop investing in empty promises. You stop carrying relationships by yourself. You stop hoping for change while ignoring reality. Instead, you start surrounding yourself with people who respect your presence, honor your boundaries, and appreciate your kindness, because real respect is not earned by how much mistreatment you can tolerate. Real respect is earned when you recognize your worth and refuse to accept less than you deserve. And sometimes the most powerful act of self-love is not giving one more chance. It is finally deciding that your peace matters too.